You're in
We
a coffee
good?
shop, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in a
Yeah.
coffee shop. So don't mind me. Just give me a sec here.
No worries.
Hi there. Could I get a chocolate dipped donut, please?
You trying to make me hungry or something?
A nice, nutritious, delicious chocolate dipped donut.
Brilliant.
All right.
I'm
Tim
sure
Hortons is a
it's
big, popular donut shop in Canada.
right.
So there's my donut, and
Looks
then,
good.
of course, that's just on the side of. There's some acorns there. Very,
Nice.
very, very nutritious. Followed up with to wash it all down with some breast milk. A
My
Cian
God.
Foley approved meal right there.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at three separate kind of creatures that would be very satisfied with those meals, you know?
For sure. How's it going?
Yeah, good. I was competing on the weekend with the bodybuilding competition, my first one,
First
and
one.
yeah. So really embarrassing getting up on stage in a knickers essentially, and there for the whole world to kind of judge you, but it went really well. I thought I got into pretty good condition, and yeah, so I got a silver medal in it, which is not too bad.
Well, congratulations on the placing.
Thanks very much. Thanks very
It's
much.
awesome. Um, so thank you very much for taking your time today so we can have a discussion. I stumbled across your page via Marty Kendall,
Yeah,
and it makes so much sense to me of what you preach about the anti-autumnal diet. And for people that are watching now and maybe not familiar with what I'm talking about, do you think maybe you could give us a background of what brought you into the nutritional world and made you interested in food and what have you?
yeah, it's a long story, I guess, but I was obese in a previous life, 10 years ago, I was 256 pounds at 33 years of age. And it came from like having a sedentary job and just not knowing anything about nutrition just being brought up with the wrong education, I guess, when it came to nutrition. So we were eating back then to kind of satisfy ourselves rather than to nourish ourselves, And
Right.
so it was when I got to that weight and started feeling bad, that that's when the change occurred. But it took a long time to learn about nutrition and figure out what I was doing wrong. So that kind of started with getting into kind of fitness classes. But I was playing like games like squash and doing my own stuff like push-ups. I could do 80 push-ups when I was that weight. So I was fit and strong, but
For sure.
I wasn't healthy. So I'd wake up in the mornings with pains in my feet, going up and down stairs, knee pain, that kind of stuff. And so basically it came through going to a gym, making friends with people who are interested in natural diets like the Paleolithic style diets, things like that. And it just kind of triggered on from there. I got into kettlebell sport and continued on with learning about sport nutrition. And one day, I was sitting here in the kitchen where I am right now, looking out the window, and I have a couple of apple trees at the back garden, and it was early in like February or March or something like that, and there was no apples on the trees. I just started putting together a spreadsheet of all the foods that harvest that have glucose or starch or sugar in them. So basically the GI of the food. Put them into a spreadsheet by their optimal harvest date, and then it showed a sine wave of massive spike in carbohydrates in September and October in the year. And so at that point, then I realized that if they spike at that time of the year and really don't exist in March, why then are they recommended to be eaten 6, 7, 8 times a day according to the food pyramid? And so I just started getting into it more and more at that point, and then I realized that it's not just carbs that cause the issue; it's a combination of carbs and fats, because fats also heighten at that time of the year. So What I started doing then is separating the two and saying, look, what's the major problem here? And I looked at the most iconic symbol of autumn itself, and that's the acorn, and looked into the nutrient ratio of that, and just looking at the USDA food database and nutrients in different foods and comparing and contrasting it with other foods. And there's only one other food in nature that matches, and this is why I guess you put the acorn and the milk on the table, but there's only two foods in nature that are natural that have this kind of unique formula of approximately 53% fat, 41% carbohydrates, and 6% protein. The acorn for me was like just the Rosetta Stone, I guess, of this formula, and just so happens that human breast milk also follows that formula. So it's kind of nature showing us that creatures need to be protected from nature itself. So it's through a harsh period of time. So winter is harsh. So is weaning onto solid foods for babies and so on. And so this formula makes a human being very hardy very quickly. So put on a bit of body fat, and it just makes you, sturdier, I guess, very quickly. And so I started comparing that then with other foods, like other foods that exist nowadays that didn't exist in the past. So foods like junk foods, donuts, ice cream, chocolate, pizza, chips or crisps, fries, you name it, all the junk foods that you can think of almost exactly match this formula, down to the level of protein that's in it. So the 6% protein seems to be important as well as part of this formula. So what I started doing is just avoiding that formula and keeping carbs and fats separate and upping the protein to a significant amount that's to support the training. And all of a sudden then the weight really started to shift off.
Okay, I haven't had a carb since 2004. Check these out. See these? See these, boys? This is what I live with. Every day I lather this up with Kiehl's in the shower. You want to touch this shit?
Do you say like, hey, well, is it seasonal? Is it weekly? Or is it a daily change? Like how often and frequent do you decide to keep, say, like a carb day or a fat day?
Keeping them separate in terms of the digestion period. So don't have high fat in your blood while you're eating carbs. Don't have high insulin, circulating around your bloodstream while you're eating fat. And I think if you do that, the period then is down to the choice of the person. I think you can actually do it on a daily basis if you keep them bookended at each side of the day and have a protein fiber meal kind of in the middle to separate the two. I think that's possible, and that's what really worked for me, and it's very sustainable because you're not really limited. So you can have your eggs and bacon in the morning, or you can have your avocado and nuts or whatever. Then you can have nice bit of fish and some nice veg or whatever at lunchtime, and then in the evening times then you could have some rice with leaner meat like chicken breast or something like that. And you can make things nice with tomatoes and onions and so on. There's ways you can make food really tasty and and then you're getting a very wide spectrum of nutrients from different types of foods. You are getting a glycogen load, and I think that if it's not chronic kind of blood sugar spikes, it's not a problem. The problem in our society is this chronic, everything is sugar, everything is carbs and fat at the same time, and it's 6, 7, 8 times a day, and it's just our bodies have been bombarded with this, what a bear goes through essentially in this month in October, constant bombardment of sugar in the bloodstream, and that's I think is the major problem. And what's made it worse in our society is the fact that we've taken all the nutrients out of the food and left the taste behind. So even if you look at what we're doing with things like jellies and foods like candies and stuff like that, it's got the fruit flavor and the sugar, but none of the good stuff, none of the vitamins or the micronutrients or whatever. It is obvious in nature that these foods don't exist at certain times of the year. So that's my biggest question to the mainstream nutrition advice out there is why are we saying eat 7-8 portions of fruit and veg and certain with high sugar content and grains and potatoes and so on. Why are we recommending to eat those that many times a day when they don't exist in nature for half the year? It's a simple question, but I don't think anyone has really answered that. When they recommend diets, they're static. They're always static, and nature is anything but static. It's completely dynamic, and we're ruled by the sun, essentially. and the sun is what causes fruit, sugar to be produced, starch to be produced. So the sun comes up, the vegetables get produced, the animals eat it, the animals get a bit fatter. We eat the animals, we eat the fruit, we eat the veg, and we're literally controlled by the macronutrient ratio that occurs at a particular time of year.
I couldn't agree with you more. And it's I don't know if you include carnivore days or carnivore meals in your protocol, but it's I'm a passionate gardener, and there's no way that I could become a full-on carnivore, because I just love the taste of fresh veggies from very nutrient dense soil that I keep at home.
Yes.
And however, I do see the benefits of when I apply carnivore days in my diet, in terms of physique and promoting a whoosh or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's led me, like your theories here has led me to believe that, maybe after the harvest moon, to incorporate more carnivore days for that exact reason that you're speaking of I don't have the fresh veggies anymore. So I'm going to use the food that ate those veggies and got fattened up with that still, and I can eat their flesh with that holds the nutrients that they ate from the previous season. So I totally get that.
Yeah. And I do think, like, I see a real major, like, people talk about the keto diet and how the studies going on with long term, how it affects the body long term, and we don't know really yet. And obviously it's going to depend on who they pick for these trials and whatever, and where they come from,
Sure.
So you can find, like, if you're running tests like this, you can find in favor of anything you want based on the jury that you pick for it. You know what I mean? So that kind of stuff will be interesting. But I do think that the keto diet is a snapshot diet of a particular time of year. So when animals are fat and when vegetables are gone, you're eating more fatty meats, and that would be along the, and there also might be nuts that have been that stayed around for a little while. So meat and nuts is probably a good combo if you think about it from that point of view. And then as you go into springtime, then obviously the animals will be leaning out as they run out of body fat. And so at a certain time, it's really starting, vegetation starting to come back in, but the animals are still lean. So it's actually leaner protein that you're eating at that point. So our whole body's, like, if you think about it, we're going from fat meat to lean meat, and then you're adding in berries next. And so you're switching into a kind of a bodybuilder's diet from a ketogenic diet, both of which will help you to lose weight in different ways. One is you're losing weight naturally over the wintertime as the weather starts getting better again, and the other one then is it's feeding your glycogen stores, probably so you can sprint around after animals, maybe during the summer, or sprint away from them as they're trying to kill you.
Yeah, either.
Run! It's a stampede! It's a game!
So I think these diets are just seasonal snapshots, and all these diets that avoid the autumn combination cause people to lose weight, and the problem that we have is that the mainstream diet that's been recommended to us, and the mainstream, the junk foods that are out there are all autumnal, and so what we're living in is this artificial, hyperphagic, obesogenic environment that's that's no escape from if you're not aware of it, and people are so unaware of it. I was that person for a long time, and I'm lucky that I escaped from it. I'm lucky that there's people on Twitter that I can go and chat with about it and find, and all these different ways of thinking are brilliant, because you don't get that from mainstream stuff. And I've nothing against science. I've nothing against mainstream advice. But the problem is that if it's incorrect, we're all in trouble.
And poor chlorophyll is caught in the middle of this.
Chlorophyll? More like borophyll.
It's the combination of foods. It's not just like one meal or one snack or one piece of food. It's the combinations also. So people might have a low carb dinner with lots of fat in it, and then they're having a drink of Coke afterwards, or a drink of a soft drink, or or Fanta, or orange juice, or apple juice, or whatever it is, and they're just loading in sugar on top of what they've already had. So it's a combined problem,
For sure. I remember someone telling me no one sits on their couch eating a bag of sugar. There's always something else with that sugar.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, and that's like I say that to people. I often say that to people, like, would you eat a bowl of sugar? You sit there and just eat. But some people actually would. Okay, but they're rare. And then the other question you ask someone is, would you sit there and eat a stick of butter? Like, would they just eat butter, lick it like a lollipop? And again, there are people who would do it. But when you combine the two together, you just melt it in a pot, and you all of a sudden have toffee, crispy toffee, So it's the combination, I think. So it's like popcorn. Dry popcorn isn't really that interesting to people. But when you go to the cinema and you pour in butter on top of it, now it becomes something that you can eat a whole big tub of it.
No! He's a Mars.
Do you mind if we talk about bodybuilding for a bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So you were saying that come springtime is when the bodybuilding diet would start. So what is a bodybuilding diet to you?
Well, for me, if I eat fat and protein in the morning, and carbs and protein in the evening time, and do it that way, my body fat will get down to about 14%, which is great for walking around weight. It's nice and healthy, and you're not too slim, and you still see the shape of some abdominal muscles or whatever, So it's a nice kind of way to be, and your face is not gaunt or anything like that. But for the bodybuilding thing, then I think I haven't tried keto specifically for a cut. I've only tried it with carbohydrates, and so what it typically is a very high protein diet, and literally then it's a lot of fibrous vegetables to keep it healthy. So, and like colorful veg, so I'd have carrots, I'd have tomatoes, I'd have onions, I'd have greens, and that kind of stuff. And it's really to get the array of nutrients in, because when you're treating your body like that, and you're kind of reducing down the red meat that you're eating and things like that. Like I did a lot of chicken, a lot of fish, a lot of white meats, a lot of tuna, turkey, that kind of stuff. So all these different things have different effects on your body. Again, like the turkey is actually there for a reason, because you get your selenium hit from it, and that will boost your metabolism a little bit by feeding your thyroid gland and so on. So there's all these different things, and they all have different purposes. So to get this array of nutrients in while you're cutting is a really good idea. But I also then have carbohydrates then specifically for loading glycogen during training, and to have the body kind of ready to be loading and emptying of glycogen. Because what you want at the end of the 12 weeks is your body still to be able to receive glycogen. So it's a bit like carb loading and deloading, carb loading and deloading. And some people break it down into days. Some people break it down into like carb cycling, where you have a few days of low carb, a couple of days of high carb, and have your refeeds. I was doing that a little bit, but mostly what I was doing was actually having a fat refeed on the weekends. I'd have steak and I'd have salmon on the weekends, and that was really just to keep the hormones going. And I felt this year there was actually no negative effects on the body. I got down very lean, I'd say sub 10%, and felt good all the time. And anytime I felt like I was getting to that stage, I did a previous year where the diet wasn't as varied, and I felt very kind of low for about 2 weeks, and that's very hard. And this year I didn't have that. I had it maybe once or twice, and then I gave myself a little refeed of a few eggs or some steak.
Steak and eggs and eggs and steak. That's what you should have for breakfast. Delicious. Steak and eggs and eggs and steak. Just making sure you heard. I got it.
It is still avoiding that autumnal combination of carbs and fats, but I'm choosing one macronutrient over another, and it's basically so that I can manage it. And with the glycogen thing as well, it's psychological that when you're in the gym, you're getting, if you're loading up the carbs a bit, your muscles are a little bit fuller because they're carrying a little bit more water in as well. So I think potentially if I'm going to maybe try the keto for a 9-week, 12-week preparation, and just see how that goes, because it could turn out that it suits me better, So I might try that next year or the year afterwards. But again, what I'd be doing is controlling the fat. So it may not be keto at a certain point, because you're just literally what you're doing is controlling the energy part of the diet. I don't see protein personally as calories really, I see it as as nutrients for the body. So if I'm training, I'm literally going to absorb every bit of it, and you cannot really overeat. You cannot really overeat protein, because it's difficult anyway. Try eating 3 or 4 breasts of chicken that are, size
Right.
of chicken. It's difficult to get through it. You'll be gorged on it, and But that's one thing I would say is that on this diet, I was never once hungry ever. So and before when I was eating all these carbs and fats, I was always hungry. You think of it like that.
That's something that we very much preach in our group Nutrient Keto is the focus is always protein, and to never fear protein. I don't know if you're familiar in the keto world that there's this fear of eating too much protein and kick you out of ketosis or whatever. I can't agree with you more about the protein of that being like the first and foremost, and yeah, like you said, it's pretty much impossible to overeat on protein because it actually has to do so many things before it decides to want to be stored in the body anyway.
And even to convert it into usable energy takes energy. So it's not like you can't count protein as 4 calories the same way you can count carbohydrates as 4 calories. So if you are calorie counting, then it's 3.2 to start with it because you have to take 20 odd % away from it. So then if you actually want to consider it as energy food, no, you don't. But in the other way as well, you can't, like if you're just eating fat or just eating sugar, you're not going to build muscle. So it's it's vital to get enough protein.
Tell us something we don't know, motherfucker.
At the other side of it as well is that like that donut you have there and it looks really nice, and at some time you have to let go and enjoy yourself. So like if it's a birthday party or if it's exactly, take a bite of it.
I'm actually not gonna have it, but yeah.
No, yeah. If you start to stop. But no,
exactly.
At certain times of the year, like Christmas dinner, if there's a get together, weddings, things like that, there's plenty of opportunity to have these lovely combinations. And I think in autumn time right now, if you get some fresh apples and you have make some jam, make some nice cakes and what have you, and enjoy them, but don't do it all day every day, and don't do it all year long. That's the real thing, and that's where most people go wrong. I think it's just that it's chronic. And
there's a lot of consideration that needs to be done when it comes to diet, and especially during the cut when bodybuilding. And I feel like there's a lot of psychological issues that can occur, in extreme cases. Did you ever experience where you became obsessive or addicted to a certain way of eating or practices of habit? And is there anything that you could suggest to viewers watching on how to control those urges and how to react when you get those triggers?
Yeah, I think for me it was like you'd get a bit short-tempered or a bit contrary. Your humor gets lowered quite a bit, and you become very tunnel vision. And it's probably a natural thing again that you're ready to start killing things now because you're getting hungry. If you're in nature and you get that hungry, you're probably the animal, the side of you that has emotion to look at a small animal and go, oh, that's cute, changes to, oh, that's dinner. So maybe it's that kind of thing. But my advice is to keep the diet varied, plenty of different colored vegetation, nutrients, variation in fish, variation in meats, and just get a good multivitamin as well. And make sure that you are taking. If it's not sunny, get the D3, get the fish oils, and it's to do it sensibly, because people for these competitions are often they're obsessed anyway. They're very driven people, They're like an actor going into a movie or something like that. They're ready for to do anything to get to that level. But I think from a basic point of view, it's just get that wide spectrum of nutrients in. Get the energy in that you need to train hard as well, because if you're not getting the right energy in the body to train, then if your next training session is not as good as the last one, then it's a kind of a false economy that you're not outputting more energy into the training, getting more a response from a growth hormone point of view, and getting your testosterone going and so on. So it's just really about balance and understanding yourself. And if you see the signs that you're getting psychotic with the diet, just maybe have a break, do have the cheat meal or change it a little bit. So, bring in if you're just on carbs and very low fat, just have that little bit of fat for a day, and your body will thank you. It actually, I think it super compensates a lot of the time. So say if you haven't had a vitamin in your body for a few weeks, and then you get a small bit of it, your body will actually absorb that much more quickly than. I'm only speculating here now, but for me it feels like that when you get a nutrient that you're missing for a while, your body will absorb it all and more, like super compensation, a bit like what it does with carbohydrates when you've been depleted.
Right.
So if you have a steak or a nice bit of salmon that's fatty or whatever, and you haven't had that in days, it will take it all in and use it, and then you have a few more days then where it's continuing to be utilized by your body properly. So if you just start feeling that way, I think it's just about changing something, tweaking something, and then going back to it. Take a break.
I'm back, baby!
Well, thanks for your time, and thanks for putting up with my technical difficulties here. Yeah. So you just finished a comp. What's next for you?
From the nutrition side of I'm just on Twitter. If anyone wants to find me on Twitter, I'm at wellby. Follow me on Twitter, look at the website, whatever. And there's also an app that I created. I call it the Acorn Formula itself. And that's really useful. And it'll show you also a list of foods. If you type in, say, donuts or whatever, it'll show you a list of foods that match the phrase and how close they are. So you can actually find foods that are either autumnal or non-autumnal, and different variations of it, whether you're looking for low fat or, high fat kind of content. And the other thing that you can do is actually you can search by macros. So no matter what macro ratio, if you just want to fit your macros, you can put in that, and it'll search for foods based on that. Yeah, so I want to build on that and maybe make have it so that you can, if you've probably seen Google Chrome plugins where you can. What I like to do is have that on a site that when you visit a site and there's a recipe on the site or something like that will show you how autumnal it is, something along those lines. But I have a lot more to do, but it's really a hobby, so it's when you get the time to do these things is the question,
Oh yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah.
Preaching to the choir here.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, you have a pleasant night. It's like 8:30 for you, no?
Yeah, it's 20 to 9 now, so I'm just gonna put on the shorts and go out and do some shoulder press or something.
Nice. Okay.
I'm sitting on my butt all day long, so I need to get out.
For sure. Get that movement going.
Yeah.
Have a good night, man. Thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it. Take care.
Let's not be a stranger. Cheers.